Hey there YouTube, Logan with Hideaway Homestead here, coming to you today with a video on being resilient in droughts. And this video, the title's being resilient in droughts, but it's going to kind of play off of the live stream that we had yesterday, Sunday, with Tribecast with John and Greg. I'm doing a live stream every Sunday with them. Y'all come by and check it out. It's going to be really good this coming up Sunday at 7 o'clock. We're going to be talking about starting a homestead from scratch, so y'all come check that out. The one that we just had was about food security, and in that live stream I was thinking about how when people, they buy a home, if the home didn't have a toilet or a shower or a dishwasher or whatever it may be, a refrigerator, depending on whether or not the house comes included with that, or, whether you're renting. Like, there are certain things in a house that people would just say, no way would I live there. If you had to haul in a 5-gallon bucket to flush the toilet, you're not going to live there, right? If it didn't have any running water except for, the sewage to be able to just drain out, and you had to go outside to hose, like, that would be ridiculous. So that, along with the culture of food and stuff, it got me to thinking, like, why don't we have it to where it's part of our culture that there's certain things that you have in a home, a homestead, just a suburban area, that, like, it's a non-negotiable, like, having indoor plumbing. And I think that's going to be a cultural thing. So to be more resilient to droughts, now we're very fortunate where I live. I've done some research, and from what I can tell, and from tests that I've done with fish and plants, our water, the only thing that it has in it is chlorine and probably some fluoride. Everywhere's got fluoride, which is bad, but won't immediately kill anything, even though it is a toxin. But from what I've seen, we're pretty fortunate. We don't have the chloramine or any of that other stuff that some other areas may do. But we, try to use rainwater as much as we can. And you really should. That's the best for your plants. It's the best for your animals. And so I want to talk a little bit about water storage today. So I'm going to turn the camera around for just a second. As you can see, the grass is starting to look pretty brown. There's a lot of dead leaves already, and we're just in August. So it's not fall. The grass is looking pretty rough. The trees are okay right now. They're still green. If we don't get rain in a couple more weeks, they may start having some issues and may start dying. I've had some willows that are wanting to die on me. I've had to start irrigating some. And so it's really important to have some kind of water storage on your property. So now I want to talk about what kinds of water storage you can have. And this is something like, you would think of an appliance or indoor plumbing that I think every house should have. So with my sheep, they're not going to be able to eat on this grass. There's a few patches that are still kind of green that I'm going to move them around to. But the rest of that stuff, it's dead. It's burnt up. It's short. They're not going to be able to eat it. Luckily, we were fortunate enough. We had a really good neighbor that brought us, he brought me a half roll, or like a piece of a roll of hay that he had left over. It wasn't big enough for him to fool with, and then he had 2 more after that. And so I was very fortunate to get all of that free hay. I'll have that for, this time and probably the winter for my sheep. So very, very blessed to have him give us that. But, something that I'm going to try, and I ain't got near enough of this to feed the sheep for a long time, but down here in the pond where it's drying up, we still have a couple of willows that are in really good shape. They're nice and green. And I'll get up here and turn the camera around and show you the pond. So as you can see, the pond is really drying up. In some of my older videos, that's the log that the ducks would get on all the time. So you can see the pond is really drying up. There's just, that in the middle there is maybe like 1.5 feet deep. There's some fish in there. There's some bluegill that had been put in there. But I don't know if they'll make it. I had been doing some work with the tractor when I was doing some stuff for my dad with the ditch and everything. I went ahead and dug out some of the muck to give us a better access point over here. But you can see the water is very limited. Now that being said, if you have a pond like this, even if it dries up, think about all the things that we could plant around a pond like this that would be nice and green during a drought. Because like these willows right here that I planted, these are weeping willows. They've done run deep enough roots that their roots are still moist and they're, you know, doing okay. In other parts of the yard, it's not okay at all. It's, you know, most stuff is starting to die. So you get areas like this, when things start to dry up, I mean, all of this could be planted into something and done kind of like a rice paddy. So having, you know, some kind of water feature. Now you may not be able to dig something this big in like a suburban backyard, but just having something like a garden pond can make a huge difference, especially with like a shelf area where maybe you could grow some plants. You might could grow some willow cuttings every year and have that just as an emergency for your rabbits. You know, if you get a real bad drought, I would recommend, unless you have your system really dialed in, having some pellets too, just in case, because you'd hate for, you know, to run out of food for your animals. So having something like that just in case, but that could be a thing that would add resilience to that. If you have an herb garden, if you have a, you know, just regular vegetable garden, having a pond makes a huge difference. Now another thing that I've got some IBC totes that are full of water. You know, having some kind of, you could do rain catchment off of your roof and have that as a way to keep your homestead resilient during a drought. Another thing, in the live stream, Greg mentioned about the person that started a fire over his property. The whole place could have burnt down. Luckily the fire department got there and put it out. But you know, having something that was you know, that you could use for fire suppression is a really good reason to have a pond. And I kind of got that idea from him, you know, because he mentioned it as far as some of the stuff we might talk about as far as the starting a homestead from scratch. So I'm thinking that really, if we want to eat better food, if we want to have access to this kind of stuff, if we want our homesteads and our yards or like our home gardens, permaculture sites to be more resilient, we've got to look at storing water more. If we can store it in the landscape, like with a natural pond, if it's a lined pond, if it's an IBC container. I've got mine just sitting out. If you live in an area where it's suburban and maybe that's not acceptable just to have an IBC tote, you can always box one in with plywood or with, you know, some kind of deck boards and make it look pretty. Or if you just have a wife that, or husband, that does not like you know, stuff to look kind of junky, it'd be a good idea to, you know, wrap it in something. But there is huge value in being able to store water, and especially as much as you can in the landscape. I know that I will pause the video here because it's a ways off, but I'm gonna walk up here and show y'all one thing about just how just a little bit of water retention can make a huge difference. All right, so here we are at one of the original willows that I coppiced, and you can see the stems are still green, but a lot of the leaves are looking rough. I've been watering it to try to get it to bounce back. But over here, here's another one of the original willows, and this poor tree is just, I've been trying to water it and get it to survive. I'm probably gonna have to cut it back some. Just because all of this is dead. I mean, all that could have been new growth, but it's, you know, not, because it's dead. I mean, it could have been, you know, cuttings for trees. As you can see, the ground around here is pretty flat. Now, it's been mulched very well. This here's been mulched way more than this over here. So mulch makes a huge difference. Doing like the pillow and cradle style on this tree, I've got videos on it. Now, does it look like it's just super happy? No, but look how broad-leafed this catalpa is. and how well it's making it through this drought, because it was able to establish a really good root system because I had this water catchment here. There's other videos on my channel about that, about the catching the water and the retaining of water through mulch and stuff. So you can go through there and look at just about any of the tree videos, and there's something about that. But that's the thing, is keeping these systems resilient without having to do irrigation is very difficult, and we've got to do every little thing that we can to keep them resilient. Now, these guys right here, these hybrid poplars, have been doing well, and they don't have any of the benefits of what I've been giving some of the other trees, so they just seem to be a pretty resilient tree in general. But yeah, all that being said, mulching, creating places in the landscape that can retain water, whether it be pillows and cradles or swales, there's all kinds of things that we can do to retain water that comes onto the homestead, because we're only going to get so much water from rain, and sometimes you have droughts, so you gotta make every drop count. And a lot of times we get our rain in really big spurts, so having some kind of water feature to hold that water, that extra that we get through the times that we don't have as much, is super important. So I hope that this has been thought-provoking. Most of my videos, if I ever mention ponds and everything, don't get a whole lot of views. It's mostly always the rabbits that get the big views. But hopefully, considering that we're going through a drought in the southeast, hopefully this video will get to more people, and maybe it'll bring up a little bit more of awareness of how important aquaculture, ponds, and other water retention systems are on the homestead. And just for your yard in general, even if you don't plan to really do homesteading, maybe you just have, flower beds, or, you want to keep your grass green. Incorporating a pond or something like that can be extremely beneficial during these times, because that water that has the life in it is going to be so much more beneficial and stretch so much further than what you just get out of the hose. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like. And if you've got any questions or comments, drop those down below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, go ahead and do so. I appreciate all y'all watching, and we'll see you in the next one.